If I could ask the presenters to come up front, we'll be starting our open panel for questions. Anybody else a question for Dr. Dunn or Marilyn on Raynauds? Come on up.
Go for it.
Please. Presenters, if you could come up to the front. Nope, just come stand up. We'll just come stand up. We've been sitting for a while, now we're stand up.
And if anyone else feels like they would like to stand, because they've been sitting for a while, please feel free to do so.
So now we'd like to open the panel discussion to cover questions that we might not have had the chance to cover before. And I think maybe we could start with another question from our online participants. Erin?
None at this time.
Anybody here in-house with questions? There we go.
I wanted to ask this question actually of Dr. Dunn. Is Raynauds only in the digits, or does one get cold patches and in other parts of the body?
Absolutely. Commonly commonest in the hands, but also the feet, the nose, the ears, tip of the tongue, lips, nipples, and then inside. So yes, in secondary Raynauds, it's systemic.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Are people with Raynauds, are we more prone to, I don't drink cold drinks very often, but on the occasion where I have almost passed out because the roof of my mouth went so numb. I had to put hot compresses on the back of my neck. Are we more prone to ice cream headaches and whatnot?
So brain freeze?
Brain freeze, that's the one, yeah. I'll prefer ice cream.
So the short answer is I don't know, but I think any way you change your temperature or move your temperature down or bring it down will tend to trigger because they're so sensitive, those receptors.
I was just wondering, I always have cold hands and cold feet, and people always remark on it, and sometimes I'm aware of it and sometimes I'm not. And I've only had one digit that has had turned white, wrinkled, and that's only been a few times when it's been really cold when I'm been driving. But I just wondered, cold hands and cold feet, was that a precursor to Raynauds?
No, you're entitled to cold hands and cold feet. My wife has cold hands and cold feet, but she doesn't have Raynauds. You know, so but if you get the skin change, the color changes, then that's you're in a different category.
That's in one digit.
Doesn't matter. If it's simply in one digit, then if it's changing color and it's white or blue, then something is happening with the blood flow, and then there can be other reasons than Raynauds for doing that. But in my universe, the commonest reason we see is Raynauds. But there are other vascular causes as well.
Who would I see to?
So talk to your family practitioner first,
okay,
and let him or her know, and then they can take it from there.
Okay.
And then if they need to refer you out, they will.
Thank you.
Question from online.
Could Dr. Lee repeat who is eligible for the study?
Which study? No, there are 6 of them.
There are 6. Okay, any of them.
Any of them. So, well, for the osteoarthritis one, obviously you need to have osteoarthritis in the hips or the knees, have no reason not to be physically active, and have an email address. Rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, same thing, you need to have the diagnosis. We have, by the way, more of fine-tuned criteria, but those are the broad one that I just mentioned. So, having the diagnosis, no reason not to be active, and have an email address. OA, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus. Or if you are an Aboriginal person living in Campbell River, Cape Mudge, or Quarter Island.
Also just knee pain for the pilot that I'm doing. If you have knee pain ongoing as well, not even a diagnosis. Yeah.
And by the way, can I add one more thing? So Marilyn said that, you can get a Fitbit for Christmas. As a participant in the study, we thank them by giving them a Fitbit. This is not recruiting. I just want UBC ethics to know.
A little incentive. Okay, Cam, you had a question.
Sure. For the physiotherapist up front, we said that for osteoarthritis, obviously physical activity is very positive, but what about for the other forms of inflammatory arthritis? Is that true as well?
Thanks for asking that, Cam. So yes, as a physiotherapist, we're giving the same advice about maintaining physical activity or shifting on that continuum from being quite sedentary to even getting to move a little bit, because a lot of people with inflammatory arthritis are dealing with significant multiple joint pain and fatigue. Inconsistent advice that still I'm hearing about better to rest than to be too active. So while it's challenging to meet those guidelines around 150 minutes a week of moderate physical activity, even moving from doing what we're all doing right now, which is being sedentary, to getting up, as Dr. Fian said, every 30 minutes, just get up and move around. Find excuses to move. Find excuses to stand when you're having a telephone conversation. Those all help considerably for the reasons that she mentioned around bone health, around pain. And the research even in RA, or rheumatoid arthritis, shows that with regular activity that's appropriately prescribed, so not everything, it actually decreases or controls your disease activity. It doesn't flare you up, helps your sleep, and controls your pain. But it is key that it's appropriately prescribed and not, you don't just go out there and become a weekend warrior.
And just adding to that too, from a conversation that came up at our break, was that it's equally important to moderate too much activity. And that's same as a weekend warrior, or you do too much in a day. It's very important to understand that you don't have to run a marathon, and you don't have to climb a mountain, and you don't have to do all those things. So being moderately active is just meaning walking briskly, getting your heart rate up a little bit. And when you're finished 10 minutes, you should feel better. You should feel refreshed. It's not you need to have to go have a shower and change your clothes. So that's enough activity to get the health benefits. And in fact, there's lots of people that have osteoarthritis or inflammatory arthritis that in fact were dedicated athletes, are very competitive. And in fact, those people need to give the opposite advice, is how do you bring this down into an area that you need to work. So it's looking at not just being active, but also that message to be active sometimes can trigger someone who's too active, saying, but what about me? And so again, and that's the same thing, really looking at moderating that and helping, so activity monitors can help, working with your allied health professionals, your family doctors, figuring out ways to again, plan your lifestyle so that there's a balance. There's always a balance. So it's again, that moving more and sitting less, but there is such a thing as doing too much. And we need to keep that in mind as well.
Just a question from Twitter for Dr. Dunn. If your fingers turn very red and are very sore, could Raynauds be likely in future?
So the classical change is a triple. It's red, white, and blue essentially. So it helps to get the three responses. But if you get a really white response, red is not. It's hard to say without looking at it. A lot of times it's simply somebody who has cold hands or mottling of their skins. So not necessarily. Now that I have your attention, we need to get back to vibrators here. Marilyn and I. You probably noticed I didn't talk about them at all, mainly because I didn't have time, and white hand syndrome is an industrial condition secondary to using vibratory tools. So if anybody out there in the audience or online feels we're ignoring them, if that is happening to them, they should obviously talk to their physician about it.
Any other questions?
Regarding Raynauds, does gripping or carrying something bring on the symptoms besides cold? Like a steering wheel or carrying something heavy by hand?
Usually not on its own, but if you have if you have Raynaud's phenomenon, and there are other triggers other than just temperature and emotion, and yes, touch can do it.
We need more mics next year. Oh, you had one right here.
Could any of the panelists pass on any helpful programs from their fields that are budget friendly? Lots of folks are on disability with limited resources.
This is just a plug for a program that is actually run by the Ministry of Health, and it's called PAL, P-A-L, Physical Activity Line. It is, I think you can just Google it and look it up. It is run by exercise professionals, and they specifically are helping people to become more active to whatever degree that would be. So in their home and also in their community, and they specifically have a full list of resources in your community that are budget friendly. That is their key message and help you do it. So certainly I would recommend that you look that up, and certainly online, and make the phone call. They'll walk you through. It's as simple as even supporting you in some of your therapeutic exercises. They will help you with that. So that to me is a plug that is available BC-wide, and they will certainly, they're aware of community resources as well.
Sorry, the other, that's an excellent suggestion. Also, the Arthritis Society, their learning center, just kitty corner to here. They have a number of resources for a variety of physical activity, a number of different, for tools, devices, equipment, where you can go, where it can fit into your budget. And also the patient education programs that are available through the Mary Pack Arthritis Center, which is in the same building. They also include in a lot of their education sessions more inexpensive approaches to dealing with various or accessing various consumer groups or organizations.
I just wanted to ask you, the PAL, what was the other identifying, because if people here in BC look up PAL, they're going to get a chance of getting the performing arts.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Physical activity line, like it's a telephone, and they will do coaching with you as well. So it's driven by the person who's phoning. So if you just want some information, they'll give you information. If you want some support on a weekly basis to call in, they'll walk you through it. In some cases, they may ask you for some clearance from your physician for activity. But they'll run you through some screening questions and help you walk through that process. So they are a very good resource, and I would recommend them.
So I can add one last thing is that at the Arthritis Research Centre of Canada website, there is a tab called Arthritis Tools, and there are a number of things that you can access for free, including there's a tool that Dr. Batman is going to talk about on work disability, but it's also a patient decision aid for people who are newly diagnosed and considering methotrexate to find out more information and help make decisions.
So the one I was going to mention, that's so www.arthritisresearch.ca is the Arthritis Research Centre of Canada's website. There is a lifestyle guide for people living with arthritis that the Patient Advisory Board put together, so you can use that as a handbook that has a number of different suggestions that might be helpful. So those sorts of things are no charge. And then don't forget your local community centres. So usually just an inexpensive membership to the community centre will enable you to access a number of different programs. And while those aren't arthritis specific or even health guided by health professionals, if you become well informed about what's available, you'd only need to go and see a health professional once or twice to get their advice on what to take advantage of that was available at your community center. So there are ways to kind of mix and match things that might cost a little bit with things that cost a little bit more.
Anyone else? One final question? Anything online? Last one? No, we're good. Thank you very much to your presenters. It was wonderful. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful presentation, so much information for us to take away. At this point, we'll be saying goodbye to our online audience. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you've enjoyed and learned from our 10th Roar. Please be sure to send us your comments and like us on Facebook. And again, thank you and look forward to seeing you next year. Farewell from the Blossom Spinal Cord Centre in Vancouver, British Columbia.